Hey guys, today I thought I would share with you how I make my webtoon on Procreate, and my webtoon is called Lila's Magic Shop. I have been working on it since July. I started by using Procreate to do everything because that was really the only option I have. And I have recently switched to Clip Studio Paint, which has made my life a little bit easier, but the steps that I'm going to show you here are mostly the same. I just think that Clip Studio Paint makes some of the steps a little bit more convenient, like making speech bubbles, for instance. If you want me to show you how I use Clip Studio Paint, just let me know in the comments below. Anyway, let's get started. So here are my steps for making each episode of a webtoon. You'll see that if you add up all of the hours, that it ends up being somewhere between 30 to 40 hours per episode. You'll see that the things that take me the longest are line art and coloring, but I have learned some things that will help speed up the process even though it still takes a long time. So let me show you how I do this. The first thing that I do is start with the storyboard, and I like being able to see the whole episode in its entirety all at once. The best way I've found that works for me is to create a canvas that is 7,200 pixels wide by 6,000 pixels tall. And then I divide the canvas into 9 columns by using the drawing guide on Procreate and making sure that the size of the grid is 100 pixels. This just allows me to count the number of boxes to know how many pixels that is. I want the columns to be 800 pixels wide because that's the size for webtoons. So I count approximately 8 boxes, and then I draw a line, and then I repeated that. And then I just have this file saved, and then every time I make a new episode, I just duplicate it. I found that 9 columns is about the right size for me because I do about maybe 4 to 5 panels per column, and then that ends up being about 40 to 45 panels per episode, which is approximately how long my episodes generally are. And here are the thumbnails that I did for episode 3. As you can see, it is pretty messy. The dialogue bubbles barely make any sense to anybody besides myself, but if you're working by yourself, as long as it's understandable to you, I think it's good enough. Another great thing about having this format is you can move the panels around. Even if it does fit inside one column, sometimes I want to move the panels around because certain panels should be linked together because they're kind of a part of the same scene. And so I can work on those panels together at the same time. Okay, so after I have created my thumbnails, I'm ready to start working on the actual drawings for the episodes. So what I'm going to do now is create a bunch of 1600 by 12,000 pixels sized canvases, and those dimensions are double what I need it to be, and that's because you usually want to draw bigger than what you need the final artwork to be, because when it resizes smaller, it can cover up some of the very tiny mistakes that might otherwise be visible, like for example, you forgot to color in a couple pixels here and there. And those are usually generally not noticeable if you start off with a bigger size canvas. So that's what I do. So then I copy and paste the thumbnail drawings that I just did, and I repeat this about however many columns there are. So there might be 9 columns, so then I would make 9 canvases and copy and paste 9 times. And then when I resize it, it does get a little bit messed up in the quality because the original image was smaller than the canvas size, but it doesn't matter really because these are just the thumbnails. I just need a general sense of what's going on. And now I'm going to create some panels. So the way that I create the panels, well, I have 2 different methods. I'm going to show you the first method that I started out with in the earlier Lila episodes, and then I'll show you a second method for the later Lila episodes because I couldn't decide if I wanted to have a border or not. In the first method, I select where the panels are supposed to be. After I've selected the panels, I invert the selection and then I fill in those areas with white. And that basically creates a little window through where the panels are going to be. So if I go outside those lines a little bit, but I'm drawing under that layer, it's not going to be visible. The second method is to create a layer and turn on Drawing Assist, and then on that layer draw in your rectangular boxes, and then use the fill bucket by dragging the color and dropping it in those areas where you want to be white or some other color. And then you can have some panels that have a border. It's kind of up to you, whichever you prefer. The benefit of having the border panels is if you draw the border on the same layer as your line art, then it will make it easier for you to fill in your line art. And if you keep the white fill on a different section, you can just use that line art layer as the reference. And then when you're filling in the line art colors, you're not going to have this problem that I'm going to show you later when I show you how I color. So after you have your line art, I put my line art layer on alpha lock and reference. And so that means when I do my flat colors on another layer and I drag and drop, it refers to that my line art layer. You can also drag and drop and hold. It will change the threshold and it will either fill in more or less depending on how much space your line art has. So if your line art is very like clean and closed in, this will be super fast and super easy for you. But sometimes my line art is not that clean and this doesn't always work out as easily as it is, right? In this particular panel example. So you know how I was saying if you don't draw in a border line, you're going to get this problem? Yeah, so because you can only reference one layer at a time on Procreate and not multiple layers, it doesn't see that that bottom edge right there is a line, and so sometimes you might need to color it in by hand. And I like using Studio Pen for doing some of the flats by hand, because I like that it doesn't really have any transparency and it goes from bigger to smaller size by pen pressure, which is really nice and convenient. Okay, so after I do all of the flats, I will add some flat background colors and some flat background details if that is needed. And then I will create a layer set on multiply and use a light pinkish color to put in the shadows. I usually have a separate one for the background and another one that is on a clipping mask. So let me show you how great of a time saver clipping mask is. So above the layer where you just created the flats, you want to create a new layer and set that to clipping mask. And you also want to set it to multiply. And then I usually just pick a light pinkish color because I like how it's a bit of a warmish tone, and I use this as the shadows for everything. So I can do all of my shadows in one go, and this is a pretty simplified style. I think it looks a little bit like animation, and it works for me because there are a lot of panels to draw and color, and this allows me to give the artwork a little bit of dimension really quickly. So let me show you what it looks like if you did this without a clipping mask. And as you can see, without the clipping mask, the shadows are all over the place. I really colored outside of the lines, but with the clipping mask, it's kind of like magic. And now I'm almost done. So I'm just going to do a little finishing touch of coloring in the line art, which I do by selecting a reddish color, and I use the soft brush and make sure your line art is on alpha lock, and I just lightly brush over some of the area with a reddish color. And I just like how this looks a little bit better because I think it makes the skin colors look a little bit more vibrant than if you were to use a black line art color. And then after that, all I need to do is add in some speech bubbles. This is a very easy thing to do in Clip Studio Paint and a very annoying thing to do in Procreate. So what I have been doing is I draw all the speech bubbles by hand using the monoline brush, and I use the fill bucket tool to fill it in with white, and I use Ventura Edding as the font. Okay, and then after that, I just repeat it, about 8 more times, and I am ready to upload it. So I just select all of the files, press export, and I usually do JPEG. I airdrop it to my iMac, and then I upload it onto Croppy, which cuts all of the files to the correct size for uploading onto Webtoons. I upload it onto Webtoons, scroll through it to check my work, inevitably find a bunch of mistakes, go back and fix those mistakes, and repeat the process until I'm happy with it and I can publish it. So I hope that was helpful to you. If you're a Webtoon reader or Webtoon creators, let me know and let me know what series you are creating. I'll be sure to try to check them out. And I hope you're able to make the best of the crappy circumstances we have going on right now. And I will see you guys in the new year. Bye.